Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and down here in my wormery, whenever we would think about the worms that I refer to as my mixed red worms, the combination of European night crawlers, blue worms, and red wigglers, we would always think of the mixed red worms, at least most recently, as the worms tasked with breaking down a big bunch of twine. But their mission ended recently. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Camera shadows. So the twine experiment ended at the conclusion of that system's life cycle, which was basically the haul out of the worms, even though we kind of do continue on a little bit. Even though the majority of the worms got hauled out, we've held on to that batch of lovely castings that were transformed from twine into black gold over in that tub. And 26 days ago, the main haul out occurred. 23 days ago, we launched off a bait box, thinking that we're going to try to round up the stragglers. And even during the last check-in 12 days ago, we went through there looking at the material. It was already pretty dry. It was already pretty barren of remaining signs of worm activity. So my guess is that we can do the haul out of the bait box and do a little family reunion over there with these little guys. And that's going to bring an official end to the experiment with the twine. And then it's all down to what are the mixed red worms going to have as their new identity in the absence of twine. All right, well, let's get over to the bench and take care of family reunion and a quick feeding. All right, well, not a lot of fanfare when it comes to the decommissioning or retirement of a bait box and the reunion of the gathered worms with the main population. It's really nothing more than just removal of the box. And I suppose if there's anything that appears to be last chance retrieval of any true remaining stragglers, this is the one chance we have to do it. You know, I'm seeing movement, but these are pot worms, these little white ones. And the pot worms come and go, but they're not really part of what I consider to be the composting worms that live or lived in this material. And right below the bait box is where I'm assuming we might have preserved a little bit of the material's moisture content, despite the fact that we've come in here a couple times and stirred stuff around. That last check-in 12 days ago, we threw a little bit more food into the bait box. We took all the stuff like this that's out here on the surface, the somewhat drier stuff, blended it all in everywhere. Oops, sorry about that. And we pretty much, I think at that point, created a material that was just well on its way to becoming too dry for the worms to want to remain in. So that's it. This is the official harvest of the system that the mixed red worms used to occupy. It was a twine system. We set it up as a wedge for quite some time before we finally initiated migration of the worms out of the stuff. I can see bits of tomato skin. I see some pumpkin seeds or something like that, other little chunks of this and that. I suppose if I really wanted to, I could screen this stuff to get some really fine, lovely material, but it's even good just the way it is if you're not too particular. So let's see, quick inventory. The horizontal migration feeding zone from their migration. When the haul out occurred, I just held on to that. There was a couple pumpkin stems. We'll give one of these pumpkin stems to each system. And as far as this mango seed husk, it felt to me like it just had never been opened up or breached. So I guess that is the case because there's still the seed right there inside of it. We'll release that somewhere as well. But before we consider this material and this system here as a done deal, let's take a quick look. When we last left, we had a couple pretty good sized pieces of newspaper remaining, which have all been reduced to castings here. The food we left out here for them was some lettuce and tomato. I think there might have been a couple other things here too, but we didn't really go through this very thoroughly last time. We just agitated it a little bit, threw in some food, and allowed the process to continue. I guess the main event last time was the stirring up of the material to really, at that point, help it become dry enough to really motivate worms to want to get out of that stuff and get into here. So these are the worms that we're going to be dropping into the system that has the fewer number of worms, or at least thought to have the fewer number of worms in it based on our averaged estimates. The green information board did show a moment ago the tallies that we've come up with so far, but at this point, once these wormies get reintroduced into one of the active bins, the numbers are going to change. And as you can see, the estimate for bin number 1 over there is the smaller, over 50 worms difference, and that's the system we're going to drop these worms into. So I'll be looking to you guys to please provide some input. Let me know how many worms you believe we've released, and this makes it official, a nice batch of harvested castings. All right, let's get to feeding and family reunion. Top coverings here in the mixed red worm bins are a little different than what you normally see in my systems, where plastic is typically the default covering. And here I figured maybe those double bags that sugar came in might work well. So these pieces of coffee filter were resting out here where we last fed, and check this out, whole collection of coffee filters. So we've got these 2, here's another 4, 5, 6, and I pulled out a couple of these vintage from my collection, the old types of coffee filters from my old coffee machine. I haven't used any of these in years. They've just been sitting here. Because guess what? I'm going to follow through on one of the suggestions I got from a question I threw out there last time. Last time I asked, what can we do to give these wormies some sort of an identity? Like I said, they were previously well known for working down twine, and they're a little bit of an oddity because they're the only mixed red worms that I have in my entire wormery. There was also the saga of when the mixed red worms came really close to crashing and burning, with a really nice recovery story. But here now, I believe, the idea that I got from the Learn by Doing folks. They suggested a number of things. They suggested lasagna, they suggested using all kinds of different colorful napkins as the only choice for bedding. But one of the suggestions I liked, which was coffee and coffee filters only. So let's give that a try, you know? Why not? We're going to find some leftovers down here in the feeding zone from what was their initial feeding, the food that went into the bin even before the worms got launched, which were these corn cobs, which we're not going to be making any effort to preserve. You can even see one of them I started breaking chunks off of last time. I chipped a good big piece of it off because it's so soft and fragile that it can easily break apart. And you know, I could easily just shred all of it right now and we'd be done with it, but let's not focus on corn cobs, let's focus on coffee. Perhaps the corn cobs can just linger a little bit, since the only game in town as far as food goes for these little guys is going to be coffee. And I love the idea, so thank you, Patrick and Autumn. Those were really great, awesome ideas that you threw out there. And the coffee one seemed like it was going to be right up my alley, because even the topic of my stack of accumulating coffee filters with no particular mission in mind for them was, I guess, heard loud and clear, and it was a perfect solution to how I can take that little pile of coffee filters that's just been adding up and up and up and put them to good use. And at this point, I've more or less done away with them. I took almost all of them out of my little reserve stash of extra coffee filters, left 2 just in case I need them, and the rest are all right here. So the reclaimed ones, these were the ones that we had resting out on the top surface. It's kind of tradition to take the brand newest ones and use those to mark where we last fed, because if you think about it, the ones that have been in the system already longest as the feeding zone indicators, the ones that we're using as food now, those were already infiltrated with all kinds of microbes and bacteria, all the nice little microorganisms that that help the worms break down stuff in the bins. And you know, I'm thinking one of the possible key extra ingredients we'll probably need to include is water, because coffee in general isn't very juicy, isn't going to contribute much moisture to the bins. Neither will the coffee filters. So even though the moisture in the systems, both systems, is really nice right now, I think I'd like to just kind of get ahead of any potential issues by trying to keep on top of the moisture situation. That coffee filter that I just emptied, that one is pretty moist, so that one might not need any more watering, but these are all fairly dry. We'll throw a little water on these as well. And I guess I'm probably going to have to cheat a little bit. It's hard to imagine that all the bedding that these systems are ever going to get from now on is going to always just be coffee filters. I don't know if I can come up with that many coffee filters. Who knows? Maybe I could. But I believe I'll probably be supplementing the bedding so that it's not really ultimately coffee only. It's probably going to be some other types of beddings to contribute to the system as well. It's for that reason I've got my box of leaves on the side that we're going to cover up with at the end. And all those leaves getting blended in will just contribute to a really nice bedding that these worms will hopefully really enjoy. Alright, so let's get the last of these. Alrighty. The last of these coffee filters in here. And wait a second, did we save two? Yeah, okay, the two over there are going to become the the new feeding zone indicators. But before we complete the setup of the feeding zones, I wanted to do another little bit of a reunion here, because not only are we going to be reuniting the wormies with the main population, but we're reuniting some of these old food items, these old pumpkin stems. I took that mango seed husk and tore it in half, and the mango seed itself is with the wormies. And we've even got this piece of cardboard that used to be the little partition that I set up sometimes when I run horizontal migrations. Let's get that in there too. What do you say? And perhaps we can have a little mound of paper off on the side too, and that looks to me like a pretty nice setup at this point, leveraging all the different leftover assets from the old system, all these remaining bits of food and bedding type materials that are going to go in here. Really nice with the coffee and the moisture and the grit. And that's going to be the new theme for these little wormies. Coffee only and coffee filters. And like I said, I'll be cheating a little bit just to make sure we've got, you know, sufficient supplies of bedding going in. If the supply of coffee filters doesn't seem to be sufficient, we'll supplement it. And we'll just get off on the right foot by doing that right away here, supplementing the bedding in the system with some leaves that'll be used as a top dressing, top coating. You know, those are going in dry too. I wonder if perhaps a little coating of moisture at the end wouldn't hurt. We can always get the spray bottle out again. It's right here on the bench, right next to me, ready to go. And it does seem to me like we've got a nice batch of material here. This bedding was built with some of that leaf mold that I bought in recently. So that in itself already has this appearance to it, which already resembles finished castings. So this system kind of has some of its original bedding material almost coming across as if it's already a whole bunch of finished castings, but it's it might just be a little bit of an optical illusion here. And that's pretty much it. Oh, but guess what? I almost forgot. Let's get rid of this feeding zone indicator because we're not done here yet. It's reunion time. So, like I said, I'm going to be looking to you guys to help provide me with some estimates on how many worms are being added to the base population here in bin number 1. And once I get everyone's feedback, I'll be averaging the numbers again, updating our estimates, and letting you guys know what the revised worm bin population estimates are. So let's let these little guys settle in, and then we can get things covered up and we'll be finished. I spent a couple minutes removing the last few worms that were still in the bait box, little itsy bitsy baby wormies that are also going to be included with this reunion here. So I've got a little number in mind here as far as how many worms I believe we just added to bin number 1, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing what everyone else thinks in terms of what your estimates are. So let's finalize our check-in here really quick with a little bit of leafy matter coating the top surface. There wasn't any of this applied last time, or at least it didn't look that way to me. It looked more like just the system's shredded paper cardboard type bedding material. But this is how we're going to kind of cheat a little bit and include other beddings in here besides just the coffee filters. And this way we'll be hopefully creating an environment that the worms are really content with. A little bit of water, I believe, would be nice too. Now we can get the top coverings back on. So that's it for our check-in with the mixed red worms. I really look forward to hearing what everyone thinks as far as what their estimates are on the worm count addition over here in bin number 1. Who knows, maybe we'll end up with twin bins. Wouldn't that be interesting? All right, everyone, that's it for the check-in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.